Hi, my name is Dolly Wu, and my goal today is to inspire you to feel empowered and to give you the tools needed to reset your relationship and unite your family. Now, 8 years ago, my marriage hit rock bottom, and I can honestly say I didn't have much hope. In fact, I had even spoken to a lawyer, seen my banker, and was preparing for the worst. Now, during this time, I was battling depression, skin cancer, weight gain, and my career of 11 years was destroyed by natural disaster. So I had no money, no stability, and our three children, wanted nothing to do with my husband or myself. I was overwhelmed and exhausted and faced with the decision of having to, decide, was I going to give up or was I going to give it one more try? Now, I grew up in a religious environment and had seen enough judgment and condemnation to last me a lifetime. I would ask God why He let my marriage get so terrible. Why wasn't He changing my husband? And how do I raise my kids in a godly home when I don't even feel God's presence? And to be honest, I wasn't really sure I trusted God anymore. Now, as I sat on the floor of my closet, a place I had visited often when I needed a good cry, I planned to confront my husband and to tell him I was done. As I prepared, I begged God to help me teach my husband a lesson so he'd smarten up and change, even if the change was only for our children. And all of a sudden, I heard a loud voice say, "That's not your job." Now, I felt those words shake through my body, and suddenly I lost the ability to stand up. I took out my phone and saw a message from a girlfriend of mine who had sent some scripture, and I started reading this scripture over and over as I processed what I had just experienced. Then I crawled to my bed and said, "Okay, God, I'll do it your way." About 10 minutes later, my husband came home, and instead of confronting him, I allowed God's words and love to flow through me. My husband broke down as his eyes were open to what he had all done and to the pain that we had caused one another. And for the next 30 hours, almost consecutively, we talked and cried and repented for the pain that we had caused one another and for what we had brought into our home. But what do you do when you want to try one more time and you don't know what to do, where to go? Where do you learn how to forgive and rebuild trust? And was it even possible to fall back in love? We had already unsuccessfully tried counseling and therapy, which took a shallow cookie cutter approach to conflict resolution. So we knew we didn't want that. But now with my husband working 3 jobs and me juggling the 3 kids between 9 to 10 sports teams, we had no extra time or extra money to attend weekly counseling. So I stopped rebuilding my career and I invested what time and money I had into marriage builder courses, certifications, and anything I could find that might help us. And as I'd learn, we'd implement. And if we found it helpful, we'd add it to our routine. And if it was fluffy or gimmicky or went against our beliefs, we left it out. And within a few weeks, friends started commenting on the energy shift they noticed had taken place and asked, what were we doing? One friend even took a picture of my husband and I talking just because she felt like she saw a glow around us. And, the rest is history. Now, after my first certification, I immediately started volunteering my time and continued to do so for over a year in order to gain knowledge and insight into all sorts of marital issues. And I realized that every relationship is going through something, but there is one key element that would differentiate a relationship that I knew was going to thrive and a relationship that I knew would not. Now, there's a story of a great warrior who docks his ships on land and is about to go to battle when he realizes that the army he's about to face is much bigger than his. The warrior knows his men are courageous and able to defeat the opposing army, but only if they go all in. So what does he do? He turns around and commands his army to burn the boats. One of the hardest things to do is to stop thinking about the what ifs. What if I leave? What if I can find someone who will treat me better? What if another home could bring my children peace? What if he never changes and this is as good as it gets? I refer to this as riding the line. You might praise yourself for having one foot in the door and proclaim, well, I'm still here, aren't I? I haven't left yet. But as long as you have one foot out the door, you're not all in. You'll always be thinking of the what ifs. More importantly, as long as you ride that line, you are not empowered. One foot out the door means you're still searching for peace or love or wholeness or whatever it is and have not possessed it. Maybe it's because you feel like your husband's a jerk or doesn't listen to you, or you deserve better, or maybe your marriage has been through infidelity or trauma. And so as long as one foot's out the door, you think that you have control over the situation, or that you're protecting yourself. Either way, we don't get to live rich, powerful, peaceful, happy lives if we're looking for, justification to do what we want to do, or by holding the past over somebody's head. Empowerment isn't controlling others. It's being at peace when you have no control over others. It's being in control only of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, and your own actions, and finding peace in that. Now, years ago, I went cliff jumping, on an island in British Columbia. And besides having to crawl through crevices lined with slugs and wet moss, the most terrifying thing was when you'd get to the edge of one cliff and have to jump to the next over a 4-foot gap that drops at least 100 feet. Now, if you would try to keep 1 foot on the original edge while stepping to the next cliff, you'd never make it. Even if somehow you would be able to manage to balance yourself between the two, you're neither here nor there, and now you're stuck. This is how I look at marriages that toy with the idea of separation and people who always have a plan B in the back of their mind. If you're not all in, there's no praise to be had. You're neither here nor there. You're stuck. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this part. When you think about your relationship in 5 years, what do you see? What do you want to see? And do you even give it any thought? What would your life, health, career, and home look like if you woke up every morning feeling empowered and whole, and your marriage was solid and thriving and passionate? How would that affect your children, their lives, their academics, their mentality, and their emotional stability? Now, maybe you don't want to go all in for fear of rejection. Or what if he never changes? Vulnerability is always scary, but if your husband is still there, it means that there's still a chance. Now, often the environment has become so toxic or uncomfortable, it seems like our spouse no longer cares. That's why we work so hard in step 1 to immediately create a safe space for you both to open up in, where you can connect. When you feel safe to speak, true conversations can be had, and that can quickly transform relationships. Maybe you're too hurt to forgive your husband and fear that forgiveness will make him think that what he did was okay. Now, trauma can be incredibly difficult to move past. It takes a very diligent mind to stop triggering thoughts from gaining a hold of you. And in no way do we ever want to dismiss what happened. But there is no future if you're living in the past. Staying upset, and in the heat of the pain is choosing to not move forward. And this can be very hard to process, and it can be very fearful to move forward because we don't want to excuse their behavior. But in a godly reality, forgiveness frees our own mind and frees us from the responsibility of holding somebody accountable. Now, remember these 4 words. It's not your job. Or maybe you're upset like I was, that God didn't prevent your relationship from getting this bad in the first place. And the truth is that God has plans to prosper your relationships, plans to give you hope and a future. As Jeremiah 29:11 says, this was not God's doing. God allows us all to make decisions, and sometimes we make bad ones. This is when things fall apart. Poor decisions equals shame, equals regret, equals consequences, equals broken hearts. This might not be God's doing, but God is more than willing to help pull your life and your relationship back together, just as he did mine when I truly thought that there was no hope. But what if your spouse is not a believer? Now, in 1 Corinthians 7, it clearly states that the unbelieving spouse shares to an extent in the holiness of the believer. This even extends to our children, which means that if you are empowered yourself to pursue a godly relationship and bring this into your home, the blessings don't stop at you. In fact, receiving God's favor and holiness over your entire family. And what could be more powerful than that? So let me ask you, are you ready to let go, jump that cliff, and go all in? Now, there are two types of people who are watching this right now. Those who think they have enough information from this meeting or from other resources to make a little shift in their relationship and think that that shift will make things more bearable without going all in. And then there are those who are ready to go all in, burn the boats, and change their lives forever. Now, I personally used to be a dabbler. I bought books and went to therapy, and I tried several counselors, implemented some boundaries to protect myself, surrounded myself with friends, distanced myself from my husband so he didn't have power over, the power to hurt me. And I started pursuing my own life, my own goals, and my own dreams. Now, this is the worst thing I could have done, but it's what the world tells us to do. The world tells us to create boundaries, instill consequences, toughen up, and don't let them have the power over you. You do you, girl. Do what makes you happy. You only live once, so don't waste your life with someone that doesn't appreciate you. People that love you will always encourage you to pursue happiness, and I believe that their intentions are good. But if you are the heart of the home and you start pursuing your own life outside of your family and at their expense, you'll end up feeling terrible when things really fall apart, which is what happened to me. Now, I was doing what people said would empower me, and it destroyed my family. My husband was living his own life, doing whatever he wanted, justifying his actions, and he refused to get help. I didn't want the success of our marriage to land on my plate. I didn't want to take on the responsibility of repairing our relationship. I was mad and resentful and full of shame, and soon found myself at rock bottom. And at rock bottom, you have no choice but to give up or rebuild. So that's when I fell to my knees and asked God to show me the way. And I look back now and I think, maybe I had to fail in order to truly succeed. And maybe my lessons learned can be used to help others connect before their relationships fall apart. Now, what is the value of learning something if you don't pass it along? The wisdom of what you learned. If you're looking for answers, revelation, or a change and are ready to burn the boats, join now and we'll see you inside.